1, 2, 3 or 3, 2, 1. I will activate it.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Yes, we're online. So hello everybody, and welcome to Wines of Italy today, which is more food of Italy today, but a bit of wine too. And I'm Katarina from Grapevine Adventures, on which you can find on my blog. And soon I wanted to say that all the episodes and the guests, I will also present them on my blog again soon. It's just that I'm redoing my blog in these days, so it will everything be more clear, and there will be a clear header about Wines of Italy. So soon also Patrizia and the others will have a short article there so you can find also all the replays of the episodes, also the past ones. So today we have as a guest Patrizia Cantini, who I got to know almost a year ago. She's from Florence, and she's a food and wine journalist. And she's also very passionate about cooking. So she has written a cookbook, and soon I will give you all the links here while we talk. For all of you who want to ask questions, you can do it either here in the chat on Hazza. And for those of you who follows on Facebook, I will try and monitor the questions also on Facebook and here. So when she talks about her cooking and her recipes from Tuscany and Emilia Romagna, you can ask anything you want. And she will also do some wedding pairings, because I think she will do 2 or 3 example recipes that she has in her book. So anything you want to ask, just ask it here in the chat or at Facebook. And for those of you who are on Facebook, you can also come over here to be present in the chat here on Huza, as you like. So Patrizia, welcome.
Thank you.
And if you start by presenting yourself a bit, who you are and what your short bio or whatever you feel like, so people know who you are and what you do.
As you told, I am a wine and food journalist, and for years I wrote a lot about wine. I wrote some books about wine and some sweet wines, and one about whiskey and so on. While growing old, my passion for cooking grew, and so in 2011, I decided to start to give cooking classes at home for foreign people. Most of them are from United States, but I had people from Canada, Australia, India, and some from Europe, and so on. And some of my students asked to me, why don't you write a book? Why don't you write a book with your own recipe, a recipe from your family? And so at a certain moment, I said that probably it was a good idea. And this book is, it's really made with family recipe. And the story of my family is part in Tuscany and part in Emilia Romagna, because my father was from Florence, but my mother was born in a very small village on the Apennines in Emilia Romagna, that it's the region north of Tuscany, that it's close to Florence. Indeed, it's something like 65 kilometers, something like this, but it's a completely different atmosphere, a completely different landscape from Tuscany. And the food is different, because traditionally they didn't know the olive oil. In that part, that was really a very poor part of Italy, like all the Apennines, they used to cook the pork fat. Do you know what is the pork fat? What we call in Italian, we call strutto.
Yes.
And so when my mother moved to Florence, then she met my father, they got married and so on. She learned the culture of olive oil. And she made really a mixture between her own tradition and the Tuscan ones. I have to say that Emilia Romagna, it's one of the most famous regions in Italy for food, because Emilia Romagna is the region of lasagne, tortellini, tagliatelle, gnocchi, ravioli. that are now well known all over the world. But they don't have a strong tradition of second course. And in Tuscany, we have a lot of second course. We have a lot of dishes. We have venison, we have rabbit, we have beef. So my mother mixed the two traditions. She was a great cook, I have to say. And you know, when you are born in a family with such a great cook, it's difficult to start, because it's true that you help your mother to make fresh pasta. I started probably when I was 4 or 5 years old. I don't really remember. But at the same time, with such an example in the family, my story with cooking started with the dish that she never made, like fish. She didn't like to cook fish so much. But at a certain moment, I decided that I have to try to look what I was able to do with the family tradition, because not only my mother, but all the aunts, such a big family, all this lady cooking so well. So at the beginning, it was not easy. But thanks to the cooking classes, I discovered that I have a natural capacity to teach in a very simple way. So people learn how to make tagliatelle, then they write to me, they send the pictures of their own tagliatelle. And so in the book, there is a chapter that it's dedicated to the fresh pasta and to these dishes of my mother, of my family. And the book is dedicated to in memory of my grandfather, but it's in honor of all of my mother and all my aunts, or my big family in Emilia Romagna. My mother unfortunately died 2 years ago, but I still have a lot of aunts, and I still have the countryside house that me, my husband, and my daughter, we love it so much, and we go there every time that we can.
Okay, so this was a very full presentation of you, which is so we got a bit of background of the both Tuscan and then the Emilia Romagna heritage. So I think you now understand that the recipes are going to be a mix of this, and then she's also going to talk about the book she wrote. I think a couple of months ago she published it in the early summer. So I don't know if you can talk a bit about the book and how you have kind of structured it, and what do you think were the main what were your main thoughts when you wrote the book? What did you want to present? Of course, you want to present the heritage of Tuscany and Emilia Romagna, but how did you choose the recipes to include in the book?
Listen, of course, the book is divided by chapter: appetizer, first courses, fresh pasta, and fish dish, meat dish, vegetable dish, and dessert, as every other book. And the choice was made by heart, I have to say. I chose what I think that it's the best of the two traditions, but at the same time, what I really normally do, because I wanted to give true recipe, something that I know exactly, that I changed a little bit, for example, because my taste changed in time, or thanks to my job, all the chefs that I met, all the interviews that I did to chefs, I learned different techniques of cooking. For instance, I still think that in the traditional Italian cooking, we overcook the vegetables. You don't do the same in North of Europe, and I love your way of cooking. So I changed some recipe. If you think about the meat sauce, the famous ragu that every Italian family do, the recipe is different in every family because everybody changed it. So the choice was made by heart, but I also wanted to give recipes that I really know, where in recipe that I could also Tell something about them, not just give the dose, the ingredients, how many minutes in the oven or in the pan and so on, something more. It's my book, and it's written in my English that you can...
No, but it's interesting because when you read the recipes, you also get a bit of a kind of historical background, and
yes,
you put the recipe in a wider context, which I think is the interesting thing, that you don't, as you say, you don't only get the recipe in itself, but you also get a bit of a background as well as personal, as well as more regional. So I think that's the very interesting thing with the with the book.
Thank you. Is exactly what I wanted to also to give a little bit the atmosphere of the possibility. Some of them can be used as second dish, but also in small portion as appetizer. Some dishes are very good in summer, but of course cold or just warm. In winter time, they have to be hot. So also the possibility to cook the same dishes, but to use it in different occasions. One can be a formal dinner, and one can be a dinner with friends, with finger food, and so on. Because this is what you live normally in your life. Sometimes you have friends, sometimes you want to make a formal dinner with and porcelains and so on. But not every time. It's a simple book, but they are all true recipe.
True. So, do you want to say something more? I don't know if there's any. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them. I'm trying to monitor the chat both on Facebook and on here on Huzzah. Okay, now I see it. Okay, so there's a question more about wine. So her favorite wine is Amarone. So what Italian dish would you compliment with it perfectly? So I don't know is there any Tuscan or Emilian dish that you would be able to?
No, Amarone, it's a very important wine from Veneto, and I know it very well, and I like it very much. Amarone can stay it's good with the stew, with the beef stew. And many times in Veneto, I had Amarone with a selection of cheese. And there's a special stew of beef cooked with the Amarone. And then, of course, you have to put Amarone together with the dish.
Did that answer your question? What Italian dish would you prepare to cook with that? But I think she answered your question, didn't she?
A stew.
Yeah, stew.
A noble, it can be venison too, a wild boar. You need what we call noble meat that you have to cook for a long time. Because it's a strong one, it's an important one.
Okay, so we got the answer to the Amarone question. There was another question by somebody who popped in recently. So she asked about which regions your cookbook is about. So I wrote on Facebook that it's about Tuscany and Emilia Romagna. So I think, are there any more questions about the background and the cookbook kind of structural part for Patrizia? You can ask them here, and I'm trying to monitor. So if I seem a bit scattered, it's because I'm trying to be on both parts. So I don't know. Do you want to start with the first recipe?
And the first comes from Emilia Romagna. I normally say that my cultural background is absolutely Tuscan. More than Tuscan, I should say Florentine. But my soul, it's more Emiliana, more from Emilia Romagna. So I really would like to talk about tortellini. I really think that tortellini is the best Italian traditional dish because it's a complete dish. You have to prepare the tortellini. You have to prepare a broth with ham and beef and vegetables, where you will boil the tortellini. And the filling of tortellini, it's not really complicated, but there is Parma ham, mortadella, pork, veal, parmesan, nutmeg, and then you have to make the dough, and you have to make a very elastic dough that you have then to cut in square of 3 centimeters, because the original recipe says that the tortellini has to be very small, and you have to close one by one. And believe me, it's very long. It's if you do it alone, it's can be terrible. But if you do with friends or with your family, it's a social work. And there is a nice legend with for tortellini, because they say that the shape of the tortellini is inspired by the navel of Venus. And in fact, I have to say that they look like small navels, and they are so beautiful. And to me, this is really the best Italian traditional recipe. Nothing better. I love lasagna, but nothing like tortellini that we normally do for Christmas. It's a winter dish, of course, autumn and winter dish, because the broth, it's very hot. And talking about wine, you need a wine from Emilia Romagna. Normally you put Lambrusco. You take Lambrusco with tortellini because the broth is quite fat. And you need a wine with a good acidity. And you know, Lambrusco, it's a natural sparkling wine that clean your mouth. I don't know if it's the right expression in English. So there is this
I think that's correct,
between the acidity and the fat of the broth. And even if normally you have tortellini in winter, you can drink Lambrusco. I don't want to say cold like champagne, but not warm, not room temperature.
Yes, I agree.
Do you like tortellini?
Yes, both tortellini and Lambrusco. So it's I actually I stayed quite a lot in Bologna for 3 years. So I got to eat a lot of tortellini and lasagna too.
Lasagna and gnocchi. In cooking classes, normally we make tagliatelle and gnocchi because they are very easy to learn. For tortellini, for a cooking class, you have to make just tortellini. You cannot make other dishes because they're really too long. The dough, the filling, and then to close on tortellini. You know that I put on YouTube a short video to teach how to close tortellini. And part of my family is in Germany. And one of my cousins sent me a picture of the tortellini that they did because he learned it from my short video. I'm very happy about it because the tortellini were absolutely perfect.
Okay, he's here now. He says it was great. He's actually in the chat, so he's watching us, I think.
Okay. And the second recipe, of course, comes from Tuscany. And it's one of my favorite meat, and it's rabbit. I know that all over the world, people love or eat rabbit. But in the last period, I learned that it's becoming quite popular in gourmet restaurants in the United States. So some of my students asked me some recipe for how to cook rabbit. It's really seldom for them to find it in shops. For us, it's absolutely normal. But at the same time, in many states, they have the wild rabbit. But in Italy, they are not so. It's really difficult to find wild rabbit. So I have some hunters from Montana that they wanted to learn to cook rabbit. And now when we meet at the market, if they ask me that they want an extremely traditional Tuscan meal, I say, okay, let's cook rabbit. So at the first time they looked at and then they normally say yes. We have a lot of different recipe for rabbit in Tuscany. We have rabbit with thyme, or rabbit with white wine. My favorite is rabbit cacciatore. The translation could be the hunter's rabbit. And this is a long cooking, because you have first to cook the rabbit just in olive oil, a clove of garlic, some sage, and some rosemary. And then you start with the Italian soffritto, that it's made with onion, carrots, and celery. And then you put some tomato sauce, but of course I do it all alone in summertime, the countryside house, and I make this big pan of tomato sauce for all over the year. Then I can it, and the last 10 minutes you put some black olives. They are simple olives. They're just cooked in the oven. But you have to put them at the last 10 minutes, because they have this lovely bitterness. But if you cook them 1 hour with the rabbit, the risk is that the bitterness pass to all the meat. And this is something that we don't want. When I'm in the countryside, of course, I do a lot of barbecue. So I make rabbit on the barbecue. And as I don't live there, I'm not able to grow tomatoes or potatoes or zucchini or anything else. So I decided to put a lot of different spices. And now I'm able to mix the spice to be the right one for the meat that I want to cook. They're different if I cook a chicken or a rabbit or a beef and so on. And I also started to make some infusion with all my spices.
So there's a question. Okay, there's a bit of an echo now. How do you cook rabbit without getting it dry? Without it drying out?
Yes, if you do it with a sauce, with the wine, like red wine, with the rabbit cacciatore, normally it doesn't get dry, other really that you over cook it. If you put it on the barbecue or in the oven, you have, but the rabbit has to have a, how can I explain, like a shock, a strong fire, because so the skin will make a little bit crunchy, will become a little bit crunchy. And this means that the meat inside will remain tender. So the first 10 minutes, strong fire, and then you a medium one. Normally it works, because the problem of a rabbit is like this. When I do it on the barbecue, I do like this. Otherwise, at the end, the meat is not so nice to. And for rabbit cacciatore, of course, a Tuscan wine. I have to say that I have a passion, really a passion for Chianti Rufina. You know that the Chianti Rufina, it's southeast, it's a small wine region southeast of Florence. And compared to other part of Tuscany, the hills are higher because they are practically attached to the first Apennines. Yeah. And so the weather is a little more rainy, a little more colder in winter. But what is important for the wine is that in August and September, when the grapes are getting ripe on the plant, there's a big difference of temperature between night and day. And this develop a lot the perfumes. That means that in that part, in Chianti Rufina, wines normally are not full body, but they are extremely elegant. and they are full of perfume, and the reserve are fantastic. I really love them because it's an extremely harmonious and elegant expression of wine that I like. So normally when I cook the rabbit cacciatore, the hunter's rabbit, I use Chianti Rufina Reserve, and then I drink Chianti Rufina Reserve with it.
Okay, so there was a question from Romina Venturi, who asked that she said that she likes Chianti very much, and which would be the best dish. So I think this was a good answer to her question, that Chianti Rufina and
yes, to me, of course, there are, you know, Chianti, it's such a big area.
Can be paired with a lot of
fantastic producers in Chianti Classico, but also in other areas. But Chianti Rufina, it's so particular. You know that sometimes people, they say that it can be compared to Burgundy, because that expression of Sangiovese has something to do with the great Pinot Noir, the French Pinot Noir. I don't want to really make a comparison, but the idea that of the wine is more close to Burgundy.
But that's also, I think, because it's not so full bodied, as you said, it's a bit lighter.
Exactly, and the color is lighter, and so on. So I love it. I really love it.
So to just ask something completely else, there was a question from Rose Perry before. She asked about the pasta when you do it fresh. How long does it keep? Because she says that she's trying different recipes lately for fresh pasta, and she wonders how long she can keep it, how long she can store it. I don't know.
She wants to know how long she can keep the pasta.
Yes. I don't know if she means before. She probably,
I don't know. Listen, the dough can stay into the refrigerator no more than 1 day. Then the color starts changing. When I do tagliatelle, I never do tagliatelle just for one time. Normally I do 2 or 3 times, and then you can freeze them. And fantastic. Of course, not in plastic bag. You have to wait that they are a little bit dried, and then you put them on tray and you freeze them. And when you want to cook them, you just put the water to boil, and when the water starts boiling, you take your tagliatelle directly from the cooler, and normally they cook in some minutes more than were fresh. If fillet pasta, like tortellini, you can dry them, but no more than 2 days in the air, because there's the meat, there's the ham, there's the mortadella, and so on. Gnocchi, you cannot keep them. You know what we normally do with gnocchi? We cook all the gnocchi and put the sauce all over the gnocchi. If some of them remains, you don't finish, then you can cook it again in a pan for some minutes. But with tagliatelle it's very easy. You can freeze them, and lasagne, and you can freeze the lasagne. But lasagne is better to take them outside the cooler 2 or 3 hours before cooking them. Okay.
I think that answered. Are you happy with your answer, Rose Perry? Otherwise, you have to ask something more afterwards. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about the rabbit, the alla cacciatora, or if you have any more questions about the wine. Hello, Kelly. There's also Kelly from Switzerland, who is at Facebook Live. So did you want to add something more about these 2 dishes? Anything else you want to?
No, but if you want, I can say something about a dessert.
Yes, of course. We have to come to the dessert.
Listen, in the book, of course, you can find some of the most famous Italian dessert, like panna cotta and tiramisu. But I would like to talk about the Prato's cookies, I cantuccini di Prato, because they are delicious.
Yes.
And I always thought that they were extremely difficult to prepare, but it's not true at all. You have to toast them.
I thought so too. It was very difficult to make them.
No, they are not difficult. And the only thing is that the dough in that case is extremely sticky, because you put a very small coffee spoon of honey, but this make the dough extremely sticky. But you have to toast the almonds, then you use, of course, eggs, flours, and sugar, and a little bit of honey, and then you cook them, and then you cut them when they are still hot. And you know that cantuccini di Prato, Prato's cooking, means that you have to drink a Vinsanto.
Yes.
Our most famous dessert wine, produced with dried grapes, white grapes from Trebbiano and Malvasia. Unfortunately, most of people used to put the cookies inside the Vinsanto and then to eat them. But I think that it's terrible. It's a terrible.
I think so too, because it destroys both of them.
Yes, you absolutely.
The flavors.
But if you don't do like this, but you just eat your cookies in a normal way and you drink Vinsanto, they are fantastic. They are absolutely.
Yes, it's true. True. Are there any questions on the making of cantuccini, about the wine, the Vinsanto? Do you want to add something more? Someone here was asking about your cookbook, so I'm putting the link again here, and then I will put it in the Facebook live also afterwards. So if we are, I don't know, there seem to be no questions for the moment. There's somebody who has probably read your book and says that they love your sweet rosemary bread. You want to say something about that for those people who haven't read?
This is a traditional cake that is made for Easter, just here in Tuscany, in Florence and in Tuscany. And it's a dough very similar to the bread one, but of course there is a little bit of sugar and rosemary and raisins. So it's sweet, but it's not too sweet. I remember when I was at the primary school, my mother and my father used to buy them for me and my sister, and we went to school with that because it was a snack. It was a perfect snack. And I have to say that it's really good. I'm happy to know that somebody wanted to prepare it, because this is really Florence. This is something that you will never find in Milan or in Rome or in Emilia Romagna or in other. This is really our, and it's a poor cake. I don't know how to call it, if it's a cake, it's a pie, it's bread. It's a sweet bread. It's a rosemary sweet bread. But I think that every people born like me in the 60s and in the 70s have got memory of the rosemary sweet bread. Now I think that we are losing this tradition, and for this reason I wanted to put it in my book.
Okay, so she says that she made it for breakfast for her family.
Listen, it was for breakfast. We went to school with them. And also, you know, for a snack in the afternoon, you know, kids normally at 5 o'clock here in Italy had something to eat. That was our use. Sometimes when we have the new olive oil, we had a slice of bread with the new olive oil and salt. My mother, that comes from Emilia Romagna, sometimes made for us a slice of bread, butter and sugar, and this is absolutely from Emilia Romagna, not from Tuscany. And in Easter time, it was the rosemary sweet bread. Thanks to that, because I'm very happy that somebody appreciates it. It's such an ancient dish.
I was that you also do kind of ravioli with pumpkin.
Yes, and this is from Emilia Romagna. This is the right time.
Yes, I was thinking about that. We were very close
Yes,
to Halloween for the Americans. So.
yes, and they are made with the pumpkins, with Parmesan cheese, and with nutmeg. You know that most of the all our ravioli are with nutmeg. Nutmeg, it's one of the spice that is not Italian, of course, more used in our traditional cooking. We use a lot of nutmeg in tortellini too, and in spinach ravioli too, and in the pumpkins, and also in potatoes ravioli, the ones that comes from Mugello, the countryside north of Florence. So now it's starting the period of potatoes ravioli with meat sauce, of pumpkin ravioli, that one just with butter and Parmesan. And the spinach ravioli that can be all with meat sauce, or with butter and sage, and so the winter meal. The problem is still that we still have 28 degrees.
True.
It's not the time for melon.
So there was another question about the rosemary bread still. What it's called in Italian? What do you call it in Italian? They want to know.
Pan di ramerino. Because rosmarino in Tuscany, it was traditionally called ramerino. It's a Tuscan way to call it. So it's pan di ramerino, and it is just one word.
Okay. So if we talk about the pumpkin ravioli again, what would you pair that dish with? To get back to it about the wine.
The wine. It's sweet dish.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. It's very kind.
Not, and it's the taste is light. It's not a very strong taste. So I think that a young Chianti can be a fresh one, but not elevated in wood. Just a young one can be also a good Valpolicella, but not.
Would you do a regional pairing like a Sangiovese di Romagna,
or maybe a Sangiovese di Romagna, but the light version of Sangiovese di Romagna, because you know the Sangiovese now are very strong wines, and with a lot of tannins too, with no, they need something lighter,
Okay. Another dish I saw when I was reading the book today a bit more was the pasta alla gramigna, which I think is also very
Bolognese.
Typical Bolognese recipe. So I don't know, just to do some other small examples here, I thought it would be very interesting if you make some comments on that, because I don't know if everybody knows about this dish, which is
gramigna. It's a shape of pasta. It's a particular shape of pasta, and this sauce it's very typical from Bologna. This is a dish exactly from Bologna, not from Emilia Romagna. Is made. You start with the onion that you cook in olive oil, then a good glass of white wine, and then sausage. And in this cake, the sausage typical of Emilia Romagna, they are fresh and they are not spicy like the Tuscan ones. There are not so much pepper and as we normally do. So you have to have fresh, unsmoked sausage, because you know that abroad often the sausage are smoked. You make them cook, and then you finish to cook the gramigna. You boil the gramigna, and when it's almost ready, really al dente, as we say, you put it inside the pan with the sauce, and you serve it. This is really a very simple dish. It's funny because my daughter asked to me just 2 hours ago the recipe because she wants it to make for some friends next Friday.
No, it was one of my favorites when I lived in Bologna.
Gramigna con la salsiccia?
Yes.
I've got an aunt who lives in Bologna, and she gave me the recipe because this is a recipe that my mother didn't do. So this is something I didn't learn from my mother, but from this aunt, that she is from Bologna.
Okay, so are there any more questions? Anybody on Facebook or here who has any questions? Otherwise, I wanted to ask you, so about this book that people are actually asked also the link. So I've posted it a couple of times, and I will also post it on Facebook later on. So if you would give 3 good reasons for people, I mean, if you would sell your book by words, what would be the 3 main reasons for people to get your book?
The book made by heart, and 100 true recipe. I spent 1 year to prepare this book because I wanted to use just fresh product. So the green peas, of course, you can buy them just in April, May, maximum June. The strawberry in summertime. So everything has been made in the right moment. So it can give to people an idea of not the Italian cooking, but the cooking of 2 regions, but with some dishes that are well known all over Italy, and can follow all the year. And I am really sorry because the pictures that made by me, because I wanted that to do my book. This is my own book. So if something is not perfect, it's my own fault. But
that's also the beauty of it now, that it's very kind of personal.
I didn't do for marketing. I did it because I believed that it was a good idea, and I hope that.
I think that's the best reason to do it, no? That it's a personal reason behind.
And my family, my husband, my daughter, they said to me, what the first time that I talk about, they said something about this book. They said to me, "You have absolutely to do it." So, or my friends too. So I said, "Why not? Why not?" I was old enough to take the risk.
True. Okay, so this was a very interesting episode, a very interesting live stream for today. I think we learned a lot about cooking, both from Tuscany and Emilia Romagna, and also a bit of wine, about wine pairing. So it's been very nice with all you people who have been here to listening to Patrizia and me talk about food and wine. And if you want to buy Patrizia's cookbook, I will put a link in a post later on. You can also, as I said, follow me on my blog, Grapevine Adventures, and get the news about the coming and also the past Wines of Italy live streams. Next week we will have Gianluca Cabrini from Belvedere Winery in Lombardia, Oltrepo Pavese. So I hope you will be back then, and you can also follow Patrizia on her social channels to know more about cooking. And if you go to Florence, I think you can go home to Patrizia and cook some Italian food, no? Right?
Yes, of course. And you come for a dinner.
Yes.
Tortellini for you and rabbit cacciatore.
Cool. So thank you all who came today. There were a lot of people, and it was very much fun. And thank you, Patrizia, for taking your time to be here.
Thanks to you, Caterina.
And see you next Tuesday at the same time. And have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Direi proprio di sì. Mi sembra bene. Qualcuno ha detto che ha comprato il mio libro e che era rimasto Gli era piaciuto da morire il pan di rosmarino, il pan di ramerino. Poi la Romina Venturi ha fatto la domanda. C'era un bel po' di gente, eh?